May the words of my lips and the meditations of all our hearts be now and always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Today we've changed the lectionary reading, something that we don't very often do. And we've done so because it's Father's Day and we've chosen half the story of the prodigal son. And if you look at the role of the father in this story, who wouldn't want a father like that? When the son makes the totally unreasonable demand that he be given his share of the inheritance, imagine going to your parents and saying, "Can I have my inheritance now?" It's tantamount to wishing them dead. And yet, when the younger son goes and says, "Can I have my share of the inheritance now?" the father willingly gives it to him. I have a suspicion that even as he did it, the father knew that the son was going to squander it. Or as I think he's still the current Bishop of Dorchester once said, he spent the money on wine, women and song and wasted the rest. And when the son has spent all his money and is, to all intents and purposes, destitute, and thinks, even my father's servants live better than I'm living, I can go back and be one of them. When he returns, the father not only welcomes him back, he runs to greet him. How many of us would wish we had a father like that? How many of us are fathers like that? And if you just look at the way the father in this story behaves, it is a model of fatherhood that I doubt any of us can live up to. But of course, if you take this as the parable that it is, we are not the father. We are the son. Or we are perhaps the other son we don't hear much of today. It is very easy in 21st century Western society to imagine that we are the ones in control, that we are the ones who have agency. For most of us, we have income, we have health, we have accommodation. We feel as though we get to choose what we do. We are the ones who have agency. And it's a very difficult lesson for many of us to learn that actually this is an illusion, that we don't. I recall when I got glandular fever when I was somewhere around 50. Up until that point, it felt as though I was in control of my life. All of a sudden, for I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, I wasn't right, and neither I nor the doctors knew what was wrong with me. That was a strange experience, as your mind starts going, well, what might it be? What might the outcome be? But even once diagnosed, I found myself dependent on others in a way that I hadn't been since I was a young child. And for those of us who have felt as though we were in charge, we were in control, that is a strange place to be. To be dependent on others. And I think in this particular time, there are many people who, having thought that they were in charge, they were in control, are now finding, because they are in one of the government's categories, they are less in control than they thought they were. And that is a difficult lesson to learn. It is perhaps easier through illness when you have no choice than it is in the current circumstances when you could choose to go out. It wouldn't be wise, but you could choose it. And for me, what this parable is telling us, is giving us, is not a picture of the ideal fatherhood for us to take as a model and use. Because we are not the father, we are the child. We are always the one who is dependent on God. It is just that so often we don't recognise this. If we can learn to accept that helplessness, recognise that despite the illusion of being in control, it is actually God who is in control, then that is a very helpful life lesson to have learned. Amen.